bit more pumped up or whatever. But, you know, I think it really is emotional management.
Well, talking about emotional management, I know one very well, extremely well, that said when women lose a tennis match, it hurts much more than when men lose a tennis match. You know that person too, but you know someone else that you know extremely well as your sister. Would you agree with this assessment?
Well, you know, it's difficult to compare men with women.
We know that.
But in this case, they usually say that we are not going to say it because we're going to get in trouble and it's our job in the middle. But I think the men, they're easier. They play a match, they play for 2 hours, they can fight, they can hit each other, they can hurt each other. But then after it's finished, it's another day, they go dinner, they go together, they go separate, but it's finished. I think the women, they play much longer matches. I think they play also outside the court, so that's a little bit the problem.
So you think it's a 24-hour struggle?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a small break, and we'll be back with Miles, the CEO of the ATP Tour. Welcome to Eurosport. There's been so much talk about tennis in the year 2000, and you did a press conference on Monday explaining a few things, but it stayed a bit general, but let's look at it.
One of the issues that you hear about from broadcasters, particularly the most important, the major national broadcasters, is the variable length of the match. Not knowing whether the match is going to take 50 minutes or 2 hours and 50 minutes makes it tough to program. Insofar as we're determined to make our sport as appealing and powerful in the marketplace as possible, we'll look at that, and there may be some way to address it, again, consistent with keeping the values and traditions of the sport.
Well, you certainly hit the nail on the head. We do wonder sometimes when it starts and when it finishes. You addressed a lot of issues, but there were no specifics. Where can the tennis fan really profit from changes, and what could that possibly be?
Heinz, I think there were some specifics. We'll come back to the last point in a second. Specifically, one of the things we want to do is not so much change the way the game is played, but change the ability of the fan to follow the sport. It's a global sport. We play around the world. People understand there are the Grand Slams and perhaps the World Championship. They don't really know, other than the tournament that comes to their country or their town, otherwise what happens to tennis when it's not right there in front of them. We want to create a top series of event just under the Slams where all the top players play. We'll have 9 in addition to the Grand Slams in the year 2000 that people understand mean something, that everybody's there, there's a lot on the line. We think that will help create even more stars and help people follow the sport better. At the same time, we want to change the ranking system. We think it's important, like in Formula One, that people understand how to keep score, not just in a match and in a tournament, but across the course of the year. So we'll start at the beginning of the year at 0, and build to a culmination at the end of the year in a way that is simple, that fans can understand.
Well, you mentioned Formula One, Bernie Ecclestone, Ian Tirac, there's so much talk. Boris Becker is in the game. Nobody knows exactly where it's heading. But I think Formula One is a very good word. In Formula One, we have one person, Bernie Ecclestone, that basically controls everything. It's a pretty much a one-man show to that respect. The ATP is a completely different matter. You have so many members, and you have so many people you have to look out for. Is it possible to run an ATP tour like a Formula One?
Well, first, I don't want to run it exactly like Formula One because tennis is a different sport, and I think that would be a great mistake. We're a much more global sport. But generally, the answer to your question is, yeah, we can run things just fine, thank you. What we're trying to change is to do it much more close collaboration with the ITF and the Grand Slams. There are lots of other examples of sports, like, for example, golf in the United States, where one entity does the professional tour, the traditional PGA runs the majors, somebody else runs the women, and people aren't asking, why isn't there just one organization? It can work in a coordinated way if the organizations work together.
What's the difference? What I can't work out is the difference between what we're going to do and what we've got now. I mean, there's no difference. We've still got Super 9, we've still got the Grand Slams. So what is going to be the difference?
Well, with respect to the ranking, Pat, there's an enormous difference. Right now, a player counts as best 14 tournament results. And that means that if they don't do well at all at the Grand Slams or the Super 9, they can play the next tournament and the next and ultimately replace those tournaments, as you know. We have a feeling that perhaps has caused guys to play more than probably they should to be at their absolute best whenever they step on the court. In the race that we're talking about, it'll be your total points from the Slams, the 9, and than your best 5 results. So you have a limited ability to increase your results from the major events.
So that's going to stop a player playing a real lot to get into the finals.
Yeah, because
the world champion.
Absolutely. He only has 5 opportunities to add to his Slam and Super 9 total. If you look today at the player's 5th best result after the Slams and the 9, it's the semifinals. So for a guy to do better than that is very tough to do. He'll be much more careful about when he plays.
And let me put a broader thing. All I hear all the time in any of the media is what's happened to the personalities. Do you think this is going to change? Do you think this is going to bring any personalities out of the game?
Actually,
are the ATP worried about that?
No, I think that takes care of itself. I think Pete Sampras is a different personality today than he was 4 or 5 years ago. Right now, there isn't a John McEnroe, maybe not a Pat Cash, but we have great personalities in the game, and I think it's more media talk than actual fact. If you're in the UK, I dare say you like the 2 personalities at the top of the game from your country. You like the fact that they're both here competing. From Australia, I think you recognize that Rafter and Philippoussis are hot personalities. Different countries get hot and cold based on who's hot at the time, but I don't think the game is hurting for personality.
Well, we're hot right now. I know that. Emilio's hanging on.
You really try hard to get together with the women to do those combined events, and probably that didn't work out, and now you're working in another solution. You think that's better, or you still thinking that the old solution was more?
Everything we've done was part of the original plan, but you're right, part of the plan, as well as what we've passed, was to try and have more major combined events with the women, including perhaps the World Championship.
Because that will solve the problem with the personalities, because obviously lately in the women's tour there are many more personalities attracted for the people. The audience are better in the women, so that will help also our tour.
Well, I respectfully disagree about the audiences being different for women, better for women's tennis. But no, the more you can give to the public, the better the mix, the better. And while it's slow going, I do think you'll see more combined events over time in the future.
So these are a goal for the future.
Sure, and there'll be progress made on a regular basis.
Is that saying that the ATP can't stand by themselves any longer in the public's eye or on TV?
No, Pat, it's not any more than saying that the Slams have a weakness
So
because men and women play together.
Why is it being done in that case?
Because we think that the more you can offer the public for tennis, the better. Just like at the Grand Slams, where the public can choose the personality from their country or their favorite player, man or woman, and see the match that they want. The more you can offer the public, the better it is for the game.
Well, this is obviously a little bit down the road. We're running out of time. That's in year 2000, but what happened today is something else. Pete Sampras is going to retain his #1 title for the 6th straight year in a row. Center court. He's going to play Carl Kuchera, a match that doesn't really mean that much anymore.
And following that, with the highlights of Tim Henman against Greg Ruzetsky. But first to the opening semi, which the head-to-head saw 2 wins for Kafelnikov, including here last year in the semi-final, and Moya winning in Monte Carlo on the clay earlier this year. We're going to pick up the match in the 3rd game, 1 game each. But Kafelnikov in trouble here. 2 break points for the Spaniard. The early rallies racked with tension for both men. The winner, of course, going through to the semi-final, joining Pete Sampras, who'd already made it through from this group. Best shot so far from Kafelnikov. Both of them with identical records. Both of them beaten comprehensively by Pete Sampras. And both with wins against Karol Kuchera here in Hanover after dropping the first set. No rhythm for the Russian, who said getting here was a bonus after what he called a very disappointing year. But you get the feeling he desperately wants to make it through once again. Third break point then for Moya. So third time lucky for the Spaniard. Moya getting the break. And he held it. We pick it up again at 4-3, but Kafelnikov here has break point, his first break point of the match. Much more purpose about the Russian there. Kafelnikov getting the break. 4 games each, but once again, Moya on break point. In fact, this is his second break point of the game. Kafelnikov unrecognizable from the man who played Kuchera. Moya then getting a break, the third successive break of serve, serving for the set now at 5-4 and deuce. Better movement, good anticipation from Kafelnikov and his second break point of this game. Would you believe it, the fourth successive break of serve. So the match so unlike last year's semi-final, which Kafelnikov took in straight sets, although they were 2 tie-break sets. Break points and breaks all over the place. And here's another one for Moya here to go 6-5. So Moya then at 6-5. Kafelnikov with 2 break points to level up and go to a tie break.